is David Tillyer from Easy Property Solutions. I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Thor Portess. Thor, welcome.
Hi David, how are you?
Yes, I'm very, very well, thank you. It's good to speak with you again, and I'm sure we've got a lot of good information to share with our listeners at the moment about some of the exciting things that you've got coming up over the next coming months and what you've been doing in the past. Thor, can you just give the listeners just really an overview, really? How did you get started in property?
Yeah, good question, David. So I actually started quite a while ago. I bought my first property when I was 19 in Australia. Had quite a nice paying job in the mines, and bought in a traditional way. But it wasn't until I got to the UK and started investing here. That was 4 years ago, and started investing in the UK, and got introduced to the more creative strategies. So, learned a number of strategies, David, and it's just been through, the type of deals that come through.
Sure.
Most deals only fit, the vendor financed sort of structure.
Yes.
If you want to put volumes of deals through.
Yes.
So we've taken that, that approach as well as the conventional approach as well.
Okay. Now you talk about different strategies there, Thor. What types of deals do you like to do, and different types of models would you say are the most exciting ones for you?
Yeah, it's a very good question, David, because a lot of people think that we're only doing vendor finance deals. So I work with another Australian, Rachel, who you've met, David.
Yes.
So, we're using a couple of different models, but we basically, if you break it down, there are three primary exit strategies that we have. So the first is to buy and hold. The second is to buy and sell, or control and sell, by flipping.
Yep.
And the third, if the first two don't work, we would control a property and then sell to what's known as a tenant buyer.
Okay. So is this traditionally sort of the main model? I mean, is vendor finance deals such as instalment contracts, for example, which I'm sure you're well known for, is that like a typical sort of model that you would apply to a sale?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think that we're just doing instalment contracts, David, because that's sort of what we've marketed out there.
Yeah.
The reality is we'd buy with cash, or we'd buy with a mortgage, or we'll buy with vendor finance. So it all just depends on which angle is more suitable for the deal, really.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you mentioned there was the buy to hold or buy to sell. What would you say is your main strategy that you mainly try to apply to the types of properties that you come across?
So probably the two main ones would be to buy and hold, or control and sell to a tenant buyer, simply because more deals will, the numbers work in that sense.
Sure.
We just talked briefly before this interview about, flipping properties. Yep. And I think you mentioned another speaker who talked about one of our deals that we flipped in London.
Yes.
You do get the flips, but they're not as frequent as the ones where you can hold them or sell to a tenant buyer, and it's simply because most people just won't go for the big discounts.
Sure. Now, I know this question is probably on the tips of most people's tongues at the moment. So, where would you make the most cash on these deals?
So, it depends. So, are you talking about the three different models, or specifically when using vendor finance, David?
Well, specifically when you're using the vendor finance side.
Yes. So, I guess where the most amount of cash is made is when you bring in tenant buyers, because it's immediate upfront profit, because you get your buyer to put down a chunk of money up front, which allows them to get into a property, and then they pay it off over a period of time with installments.
Okay.
So it's basically what it says on the tin. So you're making money in two areas there immediately. So that's upfront and then monthly. Yeah. And then of course when they complete in the future, you make your back end profit if they still have some more capital to pay down.
Okay, so it sounds like it's a really good strategy and a good win-win. So you're getting it up front and maybe throughout as well, and at the back end. So you're getting it in three areas, right?
That's right. So the reason we started doing this, David, we put our first deal together about 3.5 years ago, and it's one of the first deals that I know of in the UK which is actually completed, and the buyer has gone across to conventional finance, and taken us out of the equation, and we did get a little check at the end for for them completing.
That's wonderful. So you've actually completed one of these all the way through from start to finish over a period of time, right?
Yeah, that was one of the first tenant buy deals we did. So we bought it conventionally. I think we got a 30% discount. So we'd refinanced and pulled all of our cash, and deposit out.
Yeah.
Sold it to a tenant buyer. We didn't hear from them all but twice over a 3.5-year period. And it completed in March this year. So for anyone who's sort of wondering, does it work? Well, yes, it does, because we've got the proof. We're seeing a deal from start to finish. So
that's great. Excellent. Okay, so if someone really wanted to get started in this business, how would you advise them to get started?
Yeah, so the key thing, David, is really about acquiring the knowledge. So I'd say when you're beginning, I can only speak from my journey and, other people that I know in the industry who've done the same thing. Yeah. The key thing at the start is really acquiring the knowledge, of the different sort of models that are out there to make money through property.
Yeah.
And you also need to focus a bit on the mindset. So I would say at the start you want to be focusing 80% on acquiring the knowledge, and you want to be working on your mindset for the other 20%.
Okay, I think that's some good advice, really, because I think a lot of people actually get into property because they've got a friend or a family member that's done it before, and they see the big pound signs in their eyes, and they want to be able to do the same thing as well, rather than actually going out there and educating themselves and maybe finding some good training or a mentor or a coach to actually help them move forward. And it's very important to actually get the knowledge, as you say, first of all. So that's some good advice there. But talking about the experience, a lot of people do actually ask me, how much experience does a person need to actually get started in this?
And as I said, it just comes down to acquiring the knowledge. And there are plenty of people out there, with good experience and who are very ethical, who you can acquire the knowledge from. So you can start from any point, really. But what I would say is I've seen people try to quit their jobs overnight and launch headlong into property. Well, you have to have a very, you have to be quite a special person to make that happen.
Sure.
Because, as I said, initially it's acquiring the knowledge, and it is focusing on your mindset to a lesser extent. But then once you've learned the strategies and realised that this is something you want to do, then really it comes about, it switches around and it becomes more 80% focusing on your mindset and applying the knowledge that you've learned, to make it work. So you can do that at any time, but yeah, you don't have to go out and quit your job overnight.
Okay.
You can.
Okay, so if someone's actually then maybe got a full-time job at the moment and they want to break into property and maybe have this as a second income, this could be something that they could actually do part-time, maybe, as you say, getting the knowledge, getting their mindset right before they actually take over full-time, right?
Yeah, well, from a personal experience, that worked for me, David, because I wasn't brave enough, just to launch straight into it. I did go out and do quite a few courses and workshops, to learn the knowledge, because I knew it was something I really wanted to do. And I'd say it took about 18 months before, I basically put the tools down and quit the day job and focused, full-time on property. Sure. And incidentally, that was a flip deal in Wimbledon that allowed me to do that, sort of 18 months into the journey.
Sure. And I think sometimes, you say, it does take a little bit of time to actually really get the knowledge. And, sometimes, people are always looking for that short cut, the secret that everybody's got, and how can I get there faster? Because, it's in our nature, we always want to do things better, quicker, faster than what someone's done before. So if you had to give one secret about property, what would it be?
Yeah, I'd say it's basically finding someone else, that you like and you can relate to, and you can see that they are having success, genuine success, making money through property, and then simply copying it. Okay. So for us, that's really been what's accelerated it. So I teamed up with Rachel and her brother Nathan about 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And my first joint venture partner was Marcus, who I met, in a group of people who were all sort of studying these strategies. And we basically just learnt the knowledge and copied what was already out there and working. There's no use going and reinventing the wheel.
No, I absolutely agree. Absolutely. So what would you say are some of the common problems that people experience then when they're actually starting out?
Yeah, I think a lot of people get lost at the start, David, because there are a lot of speakers out there. There are a lot of experienced investors who all have different strategies.
Sure.
So I'd say at the start, it's really about just sort of deciphering what does interest you and what makes you excited. And I would say not focusing just on one strategy, because if you just have one strategy in this market, you may be sort of closing doors on other opportunities that are coming your way that had you sort of been, more open-minded, you probably would have been able to put some deals together. So, I think that's a good tip.
Sure.
So for us, we don't have any one particular strategy, David. It's sort of broken down into three, the three main areas. So buy to hold, flip, or sell to a tenant buyer.
Sure. I think another thing as well, it's about being creative, isn't it? Because, the more knowledge you have, the more creative you can be when you're presented with an opportunity. And that's basically, I think, what a lot of these are. They're opportunities. And opportunities are out there. It's, because a lot of people say to me, well, I can't find any deals. There's no deals out there. But I think you need to create those opportunities. Would you say that's about right?
Yeah, you do have to be creative, David. I mean, it took, for the first property that I bought in Australia, which I still have, it took me 8 years to pay it off. And that's just because I used a traditional model that everyone knows of, buying a property with a mortgage and some cash deposit and paying it off. But the reality is it's just not scalable, because number one, if I wanted to do that on 10 properties, well, I wouldn't have had the cash flow or the deposits to do that.
Sure.
So with the more creative strategies, particular vendor finance, you just open up the opportunities to so many more deals that will come your way.
Sure. Now, I'm sure a lot of our listeners have actually heard about things like vendor finance and option deals and things like that. And some people might think that it all sounds too good to be true. What's the catch?
The catch is you need to put work into it, David. So
that old thing called work again, eh?
Yes, exactly. I mean, I have to admit, when I first started out, it did sound too good to be true. And I guess I'm quite sort of pessimistic when it comes to, hearing about different models and, hearing all the sort of excitement that goes with it. For me, I have to live through it, to know that it's real. But we've done that enough times now to know that, yes, you can do it, but you do have to put work in and you do have to think outside the box.
Yeah. I think that's very important as well, to actually be very open-minded about, what you can do. And I think, listening to people like yourself, it also opens their mind because, when you expand your mind, you have so much more knowledge to be able to deal with any situation. Now, you're doing quite a few talks around the southeast at the moment, and one or two webinars that you're doing as well. How do you find this?
Yeah, I like it, David. Most of my deals, as you know, have all been joint ventures, except for the first one I did in East London in Walthamstow.
Yeah.
And I think the reason it's proved successful is because the more you can put out, and share, the more that will come back to you. It's the old law of attraction, which
Absolutely.
gets bantered about everywhere.
Yeah.
But it does work. So simply, basically, the more knowledge you can share, the more opportunities will come your way. So we're using the speaking. So I do this with Rachel, my business partner, basically to leverage, instead of speaking one-to-one, speak one-to-many. And the idea is that we can help, whoever wants to learn this or has maybe already learned a bit but it's not quite confident enough to put a deal through, we can help you through, the first deal or the first few deals, or maybe buy a deal off you, and you can shadow us through it to learn, the deal from start to finish and actually live through it.
Yeah, and I think that's really valuable experience, isn't it? Actually being with someone that's actually done it before, to a degree you hold in their hand, and that they shadow you as you go through. Do you really enjoy this?
Yes, I have to admit, David, I don't know if you've done your wealth profile before,
Yeah.
the wealth dynamics.
Yes, I've done it, yeah.
Yeah, so my key one is, or the predominant one is deal maker. So I love the thrill of the chase and, the thrill of putting a deal together.
Yeah.
And the secondary ones is trader and supporter. Mm-hmm. So hence the reason, supporter, loving, to share and to help others along the journey. Because to be honest, yes, it's great. The money is fantastic. But if you're just doing it by yourself, there's not really that much fulfillment in it. So, I love the buzz when you can share an experience with someone else and make money at the same time. That's very fulfilling.
That's great, because I think you both share the journey there, which is wonderful. But I mean, it's interesting you actually mentioned that about where you are on that square. I'm actually on the top left. My primary is a mechanic, and my secondary is a creator.
Interesting. Hence the reason you've got so many creative ideas, David.
Absolutely, yeah. And obviously, from the mechanical point of view, about the systemization and putting things together and replicating them. So, yeah, that's we've all got different mindsets, and I think when you surround yourself with people that are in different spheres of that quadrant, then you make a really powerful power team around you to help you move forward. And all the answers are out there. It's something that you think about has already been done before. It's just finding the people that have already done that and working with them, and loving what you do and doing what you love.
Yeah, that's it, David. All the ideas are out there, as you say, and it's just finding people who you can work with. And often they might be on the other end of the spectrum to yourself, with your sort of characteristics and qualities in business. So, quite often, if you've got different ways of thinking, it works well because you complement each other.
Absolutely. I mean, you're a very intelligent guy, Thor. I mean, why property? I mean, I'm not saying that, that non-intelligent people shouldn't go into property, but so why have you specifically chosen property as opposed to, anything else you could have done?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, David, because, I've been in it since I was 19, but I didn't really see it as my primary vehicle for making money. But I think once I got introduced to these strategies, it was very apparent that you can actually make a lot of money with minimal effort.
Yeah.
And obviously it takes a while to get to that stage, but, if you can flip a property and make sort of 20 to 40,000, well, for a lot of people, that's sort of a full year's wage.
Yeah.
So for me, being a deal maker, that's probably the main reason I like it, is because, the further you lift yourself, with your sort of aptitude, and your abilities, you don't have to do too much work and you can make a lot of money. Yeah. So that's what really appeals to me about property.
Excellent. That's good. I mean, obviously, I'm sure people know, if they don't know, missed it at the beginning, you're from Oz. When do you plan on going back to Oz, or you firmly sort of got your feet stuck in British soil now? What's your plans?
Yeah, I actually have heritage here. So my father was born in England. He went to Australia on one of those £10 tickets.
Right.
Some 45 years ago. So I do have relatives still here. My grandmother and auntie and so forth up north. But I will be going back to Australia. And funny enough, I had planned to go back 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I sold the little flat that I bought in East London in Walthamstow because I thought I was, packing up and heading back to Australia.
Yeah.
But I actually realised with a few deals that we were doing at that time that there's just so much opportunity here right now, and it's quite easy to do it, and the market conditions are perfect for buying property right now.
Sure.
And I kind of realised that actually if I went back to Australia, well, I'd be missing the boat. So probably the plan is now, David, to stay for another 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously trade property, but also build up a substantial portfolio which, then I can sell in a further 10 years when it's doubled from there, basically.
Excellent. So you say you plan to do this for another 4 years. So where do you see yourself then in 4 years' time? When, if we project ourselves out now to 2017, where do you see yourself in 4 years' time?
Yeah, so when I sort of talked about the market conditions, a lot of people starting right now may think that it's quite difficult and challenging, and it is. When you're learning it certainly appears that way. And I have to admit, for us now, sometimes we do have challenging periods.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there are perfect conditions out there. So one of the primary things is, with doing vendor finance deals, we're picking up a lot of mortgages that have base rate tracker interest rates.
Yeah.
So there's never been a better time in history to pick up properties with very cheap interest rates, so you can make a nice cash flow when you're renting them.
Yeah.
So over the next 4 years, we want to do flips and tenant buyer strategies, just because it's quite easy cash to make. But the key thing is to buy up. Well, for me personally, I want to buy £40 million worth in the next 4 years, and then sell it, 10 years after that for 80 million. That's the plan.
So you've got obviously big plans then for the future over the next 4 years, which is, I think, is great. It's always good to have a big vision and know where you're going, and obviously have a strategy of how to get there, which I think are obviously the key elements. So if someone wanted to actually work, alongside you or replicate what you're doing, how can people find out more about Thor?
Yeah, so we are doing a few talks around the southeast here, David, as you mentioned, and we're sometimes doing webinars.
Yeah.
So if anyone's interested, I'm sure you'll provide our contact details here.
Absolutely.
And maybe we can do a webinar, with yourself, David.
Yeah, sure. I think that would be good for the listeners to actually look at some examples through the webinar as well about what you've actually done in the past, and maybe how you can actually help them, and they can shadow you on a journey, which I think a lot of people would welcome to do, because we're all a bit fearful of the unknown, and especially where money's concerned, we're a little bit hesitant as well to actually make that leap. And if you have someone experienced like yourself or Rachel that's been doing this for many, many years, you can actually have the secure knowledge and the knowing that every step that they make is going to be a step in the right direction, and they're learning along the way and gaining that knowledge that you mentioned before.
Yeah, it's the easiest way, David. It's certainly worked for us. Just find someone who's 1 or 2 or 3 steps ahead of where you are, model them, shadow them until you're where they are, and you're overtaking them.
Sure.
So that's the easiest way for everyone to do this, really.
Absolutely. I think it's the mechanical mind of me that really appeals to, because I think one of my greatest people that have come before me, are people like Henry Ford. I mean, he was a traditional mechanical profile. You see that the masses wanted a car, so he produced a production line to actually manufacture a car, and everybody got the same, the black Ford Model T, and it was replicated, and so let's not reinvent the wheel, as you say. Let's go out there and obviously help people that want to do this, and there's a system there that I know you have in place, some strategies that you can help many, many people with. So we'll be sharing with our listeners your details at the end of this call, and if people want to get in touch with you, they can get in touch with you and come onto your webinars and go to your trainings, and I'm sure they'll be able to make that contact from then on.
That's fantastic, David. Yeah, as I say, we love the idea of sharing the knowledge, because the more that we all put out there, the more comes back, and it's obviously very satisfying, helping others along the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Thor, I appreciate your time. I know you're a very busy man, so I'm going to let you get on. I'm sure our listeners will be in contact with you in the next few days as well after they listen to this. And Thor, thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Thanks for your time, and let's go buy some more property.
Absolutely. Speak to you soon, Thor. Thanks. Bye for now.
Cheers, David. Bye.